Cory, how are you?
Hi, Sanjeev. How are you? I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Lovely.
Well, I have to tell you, I am so fortunate and feel so energized to be able to have somebody like you who has gone through all aspects of life with the strongest belief in God, universe, whatever everybody might claim be their support system, right? But the inspiration comes from that. And so I am privileged to interview you on behalf of all of those, aspiring actors and actresses around the world, not only in Hollywood, but in Bollywood and Florida wood and everywhere else that this is created. Right? To get somebody who has gone through those pains, who left the beautiful Silicon Valley in Northern California area and took $400
Oh, wow.
within your pocket and a car full of dreams and headed towards the city of Hollywood. So, with these $400 in your pocket, and I love the car full of dreams, you ventured into a place in the entertainment industry, taking all odds, establishing yourself. Even when in the recent years, when you were told it cannot be, you undauntedly marched forward to show how it can be done. Now that's wonderful in the space of only one space. That's great. Now you turn around and you transform your daughter to an junior Olympics, medal winners. Then you move and you make yourself an entrepreneur. And that is an amazing achievement in the short life span that you've had thus far. So tell us how you leveraged all this journey with faith, with determination, and entrepreneurship in your mind.
Well, first, I might say thank you for actually reading all these things that are out there. That's a gift and a blessing when someone takes their time to, uh, to adequately prepare, and I appreciate that. I do so much. Um, I'll say this, and I always like to start this off. And this is one of the things I told my daughter from the moment she was born, even when she couldn't understand me. And that is that nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. And there's power in the word impossible. And sometimes people think the negative connotation of what impossible actually means. But if you break it down and put a hyphen in between I'm and possible, you are possible. Anything is possible. And so I had sort of came from, divorced family. It was contentious at times. It was from a very early age. I was 4 when my parents got divorced and went through a lot. And I don't say that because I'm looking at the negative aspect of it. Everything that we go through, we can somehow incorporate it or implement it in our lives and use it for good. I always say God works all things together for good. And so he certainly has in my life. And as you stated, I've gone through really difficult times, but have been able to persevere and use some of that pain for a purpose. And so I decided after my grandfather passed away when I was 22, I had helped take care of him. And I just decided to come down and pursue my dreams. Like you said, I had a car full of dreams. And I always thought big, and I would pray big and I would think big. And while I was in my, living room singing into a hairbrush at the age of 5, I was I was still thinking that I wasn't thinking of what I couldn't do. I was thinking what I could do. And there are a lot of things I can't do, right? Or I wouldn't be able to do. I don't like the word can't. But but there are many, many things that I can, and there's still things that I can do. So I left my family and my friends, and I came down to LA with, like you said, and like I've said, $400 in my pocket. It was my first month's rent, and I can't even believe I did that back then. I think about it now, and I'm like, how bold, right? That's just so bold. Um, and unfortunately, the first week I got here, I got into a car accident. So that car full of dreams was blindsided by a hit and run. So I was left with no money, a totaled car, and um, a life that I felt like, what was I going to do? Everything was kind of, everything that I had set out to do was kind of done, right? It was over in my mind at the moment.
Of course.
Um, it was a high impact on many levels. And so I kind of cried for a couple nights, and then I wiped my tears off. I got up and I opened up the newspaper, and I needed a job. And I didn't have any of the connections that you established in the industry yet. So I saw, it was like a mirage. I saw this ad in the paper that said Equity Federal, and they were hiring a loan officer. And I responded to the ad. I said I can do loans, and they hired me, and the rest is history. I knew at that moment I can do anything, because I hadn't ever done a loan in my life. And so I did, and I got my life together and continued to pursue what was in my heart, that passion, that desire that pushes us all forward to navigate our success. And that's I came here to do acting, and that was what I continued to pursue. Now, having said that, it took me 24 years to achieve the level of success that I wanted to. And I'm still growing and still trying to achieve it. And many, many doors were slammed, trust me, or shut. I believe God shut doors, on my behalf to protect me as well. But as I've said earlier, He works all things together for good. And so I really believe that the journey's not over, and there are many, many exciting things ahead.
So somewhere in this process, you got the bug of entrepreneurship, because like you staged, when you are an actress, you're a part of a scene. You are not the scene, you're a part of the scene. An entrepreneur is making the scene. So there is a transformation from being a part of the scene to making the scene. How did you think, or how did you evolve to that process?
Well, my journey is a little bit different than just thinking, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. You're right. I spent many years on the set. It's a collaborative effort. I didn't have to raise money for that collaborative effort. I auditioned, and I showed up, and then we became an instant team. And I played soccer for 10 years of my life, and I knew what it was like to be a team member, and love that. I love being a part of a team. But when I became a single mom, but not by my choice, I knew in that moment that I wanted desperately to be with my daughter. I didn't, and spend time with her, and I didn't want that to suffer. That was the most important job I've ever done. We know that. Bob, where's the tissue? It's tissue time for me. It really was. And I, again, didn't want to be a single mom, but I became very and quickly aware of what I needed to do. And that was spend time with my daughter, quality time, and make money. And so I fell back on my hair license. Before I moved here, I had gotten a cosmetology degree. And I was able to start a business, a successful business, doing hair and makeup for celebrities and scheduling my own time on my own time where I could be with my daughter and have a successful business. And I managed to do that for almost 13 years successfully. And I had a great time. I mean, I found myself in Dustin Hoffman's, home, and I brought my daughter along, singing at his piano while I was doing his wife's makeup. And it was a journey, let me tell you. But again, it was the moment where I realized you can do anything. And with the right passion and perseverance, you can press through and make anything happen. And so I transitioned from owning my own makeup business to really wanting to go back to why I came to Los Angeles, which was to be an actress and pursue my heart's desires. And I actually talked to my daughter about this, and I had said, I want to go back to acting. She was about 15. And she said, well, Mommy, let's pray about it. And I think as a mother, that was probably one of the greatest moments of my life, right? And so we did. And within 6 months, I had booked a show and then a movie and continued forward. And so, sometimes, and I really want to speak to someone out there right now that feels like their dream is over and they're frustrated and they don't know what to do next. And sometimes it is pressing through and making a move, or sometimes it's just being still. But know this, that if there is a desire in your heart, and the Bible says, and I'm not going to get too preachy, but it says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And if there is a desire in there, wherever it is, deep down on the surface, never give up, never stop pursuing, never lay that pencil down, never let anybody tell you that you can't, because you can. I'm a perfect example of being able to, go through the fire and continue to fulfill your dreams.
Cory, the way you come at this is very unusual. It's very unusual. And that's what I love about having this conversation and interview with you. Because entrepreneurs typically are minded with money, or minded with creating wealth, or minded with, it is rarely that entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs like yourself, because there is something, the skills that you have, you're trying to resonate it with the outcome that you want through the power of prayers. And so the next question, or the next sort of the movement is, Hollywood is always about individualism. I have attended your Oscar awards, and there is rarely an award winner of Oscar congratulating another one, or the one who has not received one. So from an outsider, I can see that this is so much about individualism. Entrepreneurship and business is about success together. And how do you vacillate in your world between these two, definitions of what it needs to be successful? Because you are successful as an actress and you are successful as a business. And I'm sure all of us would love to know.
That's a great question. Well, as much as I would love an Oscar to be recognized for, the things that I have done, I know who created me. I know who designed me, and I know what my plan and purpose is. And I haven't always had this clarity and wisdom. I've had to go through many levels and layers of good and bad to implement them in the resulted outcome, right? And so I I have vacillated. That's the key word in that question, because I'm telling you, I have vacillated ups and downs and roller coasters, and you have highs and lows, not just in this business, but in life. And the rejection is insurmountable at times when you have gone to an audition. I was just talking about this audition the other day where I was up to the very, very, very end for a show called Xena. And they pulled me into a room and said, well, you're just too this. And at the moment, it was between myself and Lucy Lawless. And at the time, I didn't understand why I wasn't chosen. But I look back now and I realize, now that I've seen her, they picked her for a reason. She was perfect for that role. And I wasn't. But in those moments that you feel deflated, defeated, like that's the end of the world, your career's over, that's the only audition you're ever going to get that's going to make any sense or make any money, you realize, okay, and it's okay to cry and be sad, and those things, those are good healthy ways to deal with them. But when you pick yourself up and you realize that's not the only thing that comes along, there will be more. The vacillation still exists to this day, by the way. But knowing that the opportunities are going to be there is a different story. I could go on and on about this subject because I have been through so much in this business, and it is such a difficult business. And that doesn't, minimize other businesses. Every business is tough. Entrepreneurship is tough. Sorry, I'm mixing words. I'm dyslexic. That's key to this conversation. I'm sorry. Which I'm still working on. I'm always working on something. But there wasn't a moment that I've had where I've said, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to lay it down, because the drive and the passion has outweighed the alternative. I set it aside for a minute because other priorities in life happens. I had a child, and and that again is my greatest joy. But if the passion is still in you and the drive is still in you, I say that just continue on. I feel like there's no other choice, really. And there are so many ways to be an entrepreneur nowadays. When I first came here, we didn't have all this internet and the social media and all the different variations of incoming streams that we have now. And that's a gift. I mean, what a blessing. We kind of, hit the pavement, and one person who I know, Tony Robbins, he speaks a lot about this. He said when he first started, he had to make flyers, and sometimes he would go to a hotel, put flyers out, and like 1 to 8 people would show up. He'd tell them all to scoot the chairs in because there was an entire room he rented out. But he believed in himself. And in order to somehow make other people believe in you, it does start with you. You have to believe in yourself. And I think that's been a key component. I just never didn't believe. And for me, believing in myself, and this is me personally, and I'm not at all trying to make anybody else think this, but for me, believing in myself, if I'm created in God's image, then I'm believing in God. And with God, all things are possible. It's infinite. It really is. And so I don't know if that answered your question. I think backwards sometimes. And so I kind of start backwards, but I still vacillate. I still, I'm human, and I fail and I fall and I cry and I bleed. But I feel like along the way, there are so many divine appointments, and God will throw someone like yourself, Sanjeev, in my path. And if you and I had not even had this connection right here, right now, on the phone, the pre-interview phone call we had, I learned so much from you, and I actually am grateful for that. And so, if we can all continue to learn and be open and listen, part of being an entrepreneur, really, um, is listening, right? Building your team, finding, that infrastructure that has a good foundation that you can continue to navigate with your peers. And, iron sharpens iron. And so we find people that are like-minded and that you can get on the bus with. They will drive you to places that you could never even imagine. And I feel like I've been blessed along the way in that respect.
Very interesting way of looking at opportunities in a prospective manner. Cory, there are a lot of entrepreneurial minded ideas, concepts in Hollywood. You just said that technology enabled you to create entrepreneurial opportunities of revenues or income, right? For those that may not know these or not aware of these, could you lay out a few opportunities so they could connect the dots better? Essentially, I'm requesting you to define some dots out there in what could be the entrepreneurial opportunities in an acting or in an entertainment space like yours.
Well, when I first started, it was difficult to build a brand because you didn't have the infrastructure we have now with the internet and social media and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the various streaming platforms, YouTube. Now, remember back in the day when they said Facebook is going to become your resume? And I kind of laughed. I have a resume. It's on a piece of paper, right? How antiquated now is that piece of paper resume, right? But it actually, it kind of is. And it's a numbers game, really. And there is this whole world of internet space that is infinite and that you can monetize on as an actor, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a singer, as whatever that may be that is in your heart to do. You can build an Instagram in 1 second and create a space for yourself to monetize on rather quickly. Instead of pounding the pavement and creating flyers like Tony Robbins did, you can get it out there really fast. And that might be hiring, a team or hiring a good web designer. Mine happens to be my very best friend who I went to high school with, who is my business partner as well. Actually went to 6th grade. I've known her for over 40 years. And we both stay in our lane. She's great at the technical aspect. I'm the front girl, as you will. But to is wondering how to pursue an entrepreneur position, if that's what they choose. I'm going to say what not to do is listen to anything that is negative. You can do it. And if you do one thing, if not 10 things a day, make it happen. I am a huge, huge list person. I think once you write a concept or something down on a piece of paper, it becomes an action and a thought. And so I make lists every day. And sometimes there's 10 things, sometimes there's 20, sometimes there's 4. But I really do try my best to cross the things off those lists on a daily basis because it moves you forward, puts that thought into action and action into play. And eventually you will see the result of checking off the boxes. Checking off the list.
So you took acting as a profession, learned the ropes of entrepreneurship through acting of incomes. I would suggest I mean, your interview should more be about what to do than what not to do. But that is the good part of it, right? Because from what you have learned, what to do comes from the background of what not to do. So maybe you could create a template of how to leverage the profession to create, what you may consider as revenue generating opportunities, because those templates can be used by a lot of people that may not know how you have connected the dots to create the Milky Way or to create the revenue way. So think about that. That would be very important and useful to some of the people that are budding actors or actresses in your space. A part of the question that I wanted to ask you is more from the outside financial world. Right? Any business, however small, big, at some point in time requires to go into the growth phase or create wealth in a liquidity phase so that you don't have to work for it every day. And therefore, such businesses require investments or they require capital. And each profession, each segment have different needs of capital. Now, from whatever I know and I have read, the Hollywood capital only exists in major corporations. But the dreams lie with the individuals who seek the money to create that kind of capital. And for example, I could use your balm business that you have created. And I'd like to, of course, learn about that more in this question. But it could be something that you are currently selling to your clients because then it's a word of mouth kind of. And how could you create, through access to some capital, on a significant size business when that capital is not necessarily tappable? It is available, but not easily tappable to entrepreneurs like yourself. So share with me that example and how were capital to be available from outside the box thinking of different wealths of different sources that you could create an amazing company out of.
Well, that's a great question. Capital is always the at the top of your seeking. Is at the top of the list, right? You need capital to work and to fund your businesses. But when I started in the entertainment industry, everything was funded, right? Everything I worked on was already funded. And now that I've written my own screenplay and I've produced projects and I've been on the other side of it, I have just had difficulty to raise the capital to get any project done, let alone a small budget project. So, fortunately, we didn't have to seek capital for Beverly Hills Balm. And I actually created the ingredients. And I'll be honest, I have to give credit to a friend of mine, Dina, who created a nail polish in her dorm kitchen when this was like 25, 30 years ago. She created a company called Hard Candy. And that company back then just started with nail polish, and she started it with whiteout and food coloring. Genius. Their company sold several years later, I believe, to Estee Lauder for 35 or 40 million. I'm not sure. And that in that moment, I was a makeup and hair artist, and I was using her makeup on a show called Home and Family. And in that moment, you don't realize why you met that person, but then 20 years later, her voice went in my head and what she did, and I thought, why can't I do it? And I found myself in the kitchen creating a lip balm of 5 natural ingredients, and one thing led to another. And so Going back to a question you asked me, it has never, for me, it really truly, and I can honestly say, it's been about me. It has been about creating and, doing something worthy and fun and expression and making sure that I'm fulfilling my purpose and the money comes. It's like the money just comes. And so I know that sounds so silly and cliche, but it actually does. And I I am grateful and blessed. But capital, going back to your original question, is comes in many forms. It, I don't know who I'm speaking to, but there's many different ways of approaching it, and I haven't had to seek capital at this point, other than for my movie that I'm producing currently, um, and that's been interesting. So I don't. I guess I'm. It's a tough question for me because I haven't really pursued that
So
aspect.
let me help you there. Let me help you there. So the the fundamental purpose of any business, right, is to make money. Right. That is the purpose of business. Otherwise, it's a hobby, you know. Right? And please don't take me the wrong way, but business is spelled as BUSI, and therefore most people outside, of the world, some of the people in other countries think that being very busy is being in business, but that's the wrong definition of business, right? So the purpose of that, I mean, that's where we came back to saying we have to make money in this thing. Now, making money becomes only true on a scalable operation. Your friend who started with that nail paint scaled its operation to create the value so that she could sell it to Estee Lauder. Right? So in that process of that, there was access of capital. And what I'm trying to find out, for people like yourself who are not as successful or not as blessed as you are, but would like to be, and they have some ideas. Now, at this point in time, your balsamic balm is a product. It's not necessarily a company, right? It's a product, and you're selling a product. Entrepreneurs create companies. That's how they create wealth. Right? So at some point in time, when you are guided by the thoughts and the vision of God. And by the way, I just wanted to add something. They say God is no thing or nothing. Remember, that. So it's the same thing as the secret, the book of the secret. It is the book of Eckhart Tolle, where the God is a no thing, and then we create that, in terms of the energies. So when you align those, you will be able to transform your product into a company. Right? That's what true entrepreneurship. You have already transformed your business of acting into an entrepreneurship because you are selling your services from Instagram or you're getting incomes from those, all multiple dimensions of revenue. Right? So, is there a plan you have to transform your current product into a company? Because entrepreneurs must know the difference between product and a company.
Yes, I mean, for me, I love to create. So we've started with a balm, and we are looking to expand product wise and a whole line of things. This is just for me, healthcare, skincare, hair care. I'm not sure if we'll go into the internal aspect of it. Maybe, maybe not. Um, I I know that there you can create a site so easily now, and I'll use Dollar Shave Club as an example. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they created a template 5, 6 years ago, a one-page template to sell razors. And I actually subscribed. It was a subscription. It was one razor for $1, six razors or three razors for $6, and a $9 package, which was genius, right? And at the time, everybody thought, how silly. You can get razors at the 99-cent store, or you can get razors at, CVS. And, cut to five years later, they sold to Unilever for $1 billion. And so I don't know him personally, the owner, but he was creative, and he made a 1-minute, really creative video. And I read the story, and it was interesting because he had gone to investors, and I think, and don't quote me, but I think he wanted like $100,000 to start, right? Which is a lot, but isn't in the realm of what he has made so far. And they kind of said, no, we're not really interested in this, which we've all heard in one way or another. And he handed them this really clever 60-second, 1-minute video that changed the way that they saw and viewed their business. And long story short, he sold it and is a billionaire, based on a one-page template. And so, I look back at what Walt Disney has said: if you can dream it, you can achieve it. And he really implemented those qualities in seeking his financiers in regards to his company. Those are simple things pretty much anyone, if you have an internet, can do. Or us, we've got the ability now to create an entire video like Selena Gomez did on her latest. She shot the whole thing on her iPhone. As far as I think I deflected. As far as the business aspect of it, for my personal farm business, like I said, my partner and I were blessed enough to put into it ourselves and be successful at it. But to somebody who's starting off, you can create a website yourself. You can create a template yourself. It depends on your product. My stepdad was in the drug sundry business, and he told me a valuable piece of information from the beginning and the inception of my idea. And he said, put your money into your product, not your packaging. He said that many, many people put it into their packaging in the beginning, and products would sit on his shelf, and they'd win awards for how beautiful the packaging was, but the product did not hold up to the name of the packaging, and so it would sit on the shelf. And I feel like that's what we did. Our sorry, I don't know what to do, but our packaging is simple. It's literally black and white, and we did put the money into the and successfully. People seem to be happy with it, and for that I'm grateful and happy and pleased. I would say when you are, and if you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, seek as many people's advice and knowledge. Knowledge is key. It's power. And I don't know anything. I go into a meeting or into something, into communication with anyone, not knowing anything. Really asking questions, understanding what they did right and what they did wrong to implement it into my business. I know there are coaches. I know that there are mentors. I know that there are people that have come into my life that have sewn into it. But I also know and have the power, like you do and many other people do, to go on the internet and do the research. Research is available, and if you don't have the internet, you can go to a cafe, jump on someone's Wi-Fi, or be creative, right? And I don't know. I just feel like there's nothing you can't do.
So far, and I appreciate you sharing the nitty-gritties, because that's what is required in building a business, right? So share with us, besides your daughter, one or two other people that have helped you transform or contributed to the path that you have now chosen as an entrepreneur.
Well, this might sound negative, but my ex-husband, my daughter's father, when he left when she was a year and a half old, and I love him, just to preface this whole conversation, he gave me the greatest gift of my life, my daughter, but he also gave me many other really hard lessons. He gave me patience, he gave me forgiveness, he gave me understanding of who I was, good and bad. And he gave me more faith, because the times weren't easy. He gave me knowledge. He's an incredible businessman. I sat and created a business with him, a successful business with him as well. We created, television shows that I ended up doing 66 episodes of that are still playing on a network. And he really has been a key player in my game, right? And there have been many, 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 many sad times in that relationship. But again, God's worked them all for good. And I love him. I truly love him for it. Because without those moments, I would not have grown. And just like your business, as a person, you start out a seed, right? You're an egg. And then you're born, and people come along the way and they water it and they sow into it, and it takes a village, and you go to school and you have teachers and you have daycare and you have aunts and you have uncles and you have grandparents and parents and brothers and sisters, and they form who you are. And so you kind of are, in a sense, an entrepreneur without even knowing it, because you are. And when you can actually take those lessons and apply them and use them to create the life that you want, which is an entrepreneur. Most people go into it because they want to work for themselves, be their own boss, and have time, right, to do whatever it is that they love to do. And so I believe that you asked me who or what has been an integral part of that, my growth. He's been he has been at the top. His name's Jonathan Koch. And I thank him to this day, because aside from just giving me Ariana, my daughter, he's given me so many other qualities that are good and that are, I don't even want to say bad, because they've all worked themselves together for good, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have lessons that are
Cool.
and lessons that are powerful. And the key to fall and break is really to put yourself together. I know you've probably heard this, but in China, they have that fill broken glass with gold. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's magnificent. It's beautiful. When a cup breaks, they put it together with gold. And that's how I feel our lives are when we're created. We become broken on so many levels. And God kind of fills it with gold.
Okay, that's a good way of looking at it. How do you see the entertainment or the entrepreneurial opportunities changing through the post-COVID sort of era? And give an example of somebody who wants to become an entrepreneur post-COVID. How would that be different than what it was before?
Well, I'll give you an example. There's a guy by the name of Andrew Carter. And when all of COVID started, there was a app called TikTok. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
But because people were at home and had nothing else to do, they kind of got on this right here. And it became almost like a Netflix, almost like their Hulu, their television. It really, I mean, for myself included. And everybody kind of got on TikTok, and they had these overnight sensation of people that would create TikToks, and they would literally, from one night to the next, they could have 0 followers and they'd have 350,000 likes, which is, to my previous question, that's the power of the internet. And they have become entrepreneurs. He's writing a book. He's got an incredible story. In fact, I should connect you guys because he's smart. He's been through the fire. He's established an overnight audience, really, and is doing great things. And he's become an entrepreneur. And I will say, almost overnight, even though if you hear his whole backstory, as we all have, it wasn't overnight for him. It just happens to be with the click of a button because of TikTok. That's just one of the ways to do it. As you know, there's many. There are, things are changing with COVID, and I know that it's been difficult for everyone. And I know there's uncertainty and red pain that has gone into this pandemic indirectly, aside from the actual virus itself, with people losing their homes and jobs. But I know that there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of the possibility that exist with the internet. I just keep going back to the internet because it's a really powerful.
It is the connecting media at this point in time, right? It is the only connecting media at this point in time.
It really is.
Well, I'm sure there are lots of other ways using the internet capabilities that new business opportunities can be pulled together, and including having remote acting and bringing them on a single video, and you have seen lots of those kinds of things happening in the music world and everything. Hey, Cory, I've asked you a lot of questions. I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask me some of the questions that you have on your mind.
Well, for me, Sanjeev, it's about an individual's, and I'm fascinated with people in general. And I would ask you, in deconstructing your journey, what has been the greatest societal impact on your business, and how have you overcome the adversity in that moment, and how have you applied it in the past and presently? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
So I'm going to ask you to repeat the question only because you broke in the process, and I want to make sure I respectfully answer the question. So could you please repeat the question?
I'm just curious. I'm curious in when you deconstruct your business or your journey, as a whole. What is the societal impact that you've had? What your journey has been somewhat similar to mine in the fact of what the resources available early on as they are now. They've changed significantly. What has been the most impactful, I would say, lesson that you've learned, that you've applied to your business?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question, and so the things that probably I have learned in this journey is, when you are an entrepreneur, or you want to be an entrepreneur, you're becoming an entrepreneur. The power of the ego, the power of the passion, the power of execution, the power of success sort of gets totally ingrained in the personality that is you. And so you forget that this has not been your success. This has been the success of the universe, the God, the team that has been you. And for that kind of awareness, you must always be in touch with humility. Because humility will create for you the most powerful tool of continued acceptance and success. So if there is one thing that I have learned among all the other things, is very early stages, if I find an entrepreneur and I have to choose between an entrepreneur who is ego-filled and an entrepreneur who has humility, I will fund the entrepreneur who has humility. Because humility is not submission, humility is a power. And so as I speak with you, the one thing that I see ingrained in your path is you kept, and you were always kept through awareness, that humility in you. And being an actress, being beautiful, being all of those things are wonderful gifts, but creating that existence and growth through humility is a powerful tool. So that's one thing that I have really, really kind of learned in this journey. The second thing that I have learned, in order for all of entrepreneurs, including yourself, to succeed, is the universe, God creates dots. And I have said that to you earlier in the conversation. We as entrepreneurs and human beings choose, because of our existence of ego, pathways that are difficult when we don't have to choose those, connect those dots. I call it, and you and I spoke about swimming up the Niagara when you can swim down the river. And most businesses in today's economics and the availability of infrastructure can be designed to create path of least resistance. Because it is not the effort that creates the wealth, it is the outcome of the effort that creates the wealth. So therefore, if you are able to create that, then you will get better returns and better value for what you have designed, set out to do or designed yourself to be in. And those are the two things, with humility and the ability to connect. The passion will remain, the domain knowledge will come, the people will get together because you are humble and you know how to create the dots to success. That's what I have learned, Cory.
That is a great point. And are you familiar with Dwayne Dyer?
Yes, I am. Power of intentions.
He says that ego is etching God out. And you hit it right on the nose. Humility is a powerful thing then. And to your point, some people are born with it and some people it has to be worked a little bit in them. But I agree that it's a powerful tool. And I thank you for answering that question. I have one more question, if that's okay.
Of course.
Many questions, but if you could tell yourself at, I'll pick 25. You could give that 25 you just one piece of valuable advice. What would it be?
As an entrepreneur or as a person?
Both.
As a person and as an entrepreneur, because the two are quite different, As a person, let me talk to you about first as an entrepreneur. Because the power of entrepreneurship is in the power of wealth creation. But the wealth creation engine is the means to create a fairness, givingness to all. Because the sustainable model of survival, friendship, relationship is in the give space. So therefore, if you create wealth, then you must create a pattern or a model to share that wealth. And that I teach and I request all entrepreneurs to do. I've seen many of them, they have 10 million shares and the next person has 1,000 shares. And that is not truly the power that is of how entrepreneurs should be used. Because you don't take anything upstairs, you have to create that. So that's on the entrepreneurial side. On the personal side, my purpose is always to bring out the best in the other person that I am affiliated or associated with. Because by making him or her more powerful, I do not lose my power. I create more power for myself, knowing how powerful he or she is. So therefore, I seek at every level, whether it is an intern, whether it is my work colleagues, or whether whoever else other entrepreneurs are, the power of creating success for others is truly a personal commitment that I keep in order for me to feel that, energy that I have. Because that way you will allow always put everybody else's growth in front of you. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put yourself last person on the totem pole. That is not what that means. And you do that very well yourself through all of these things. I mean, you gave your ex-husband all the credits for what you have been, right? And things like that. So that is the difference for me between the role of an entrepreneur and the role of a person.
I think that's one of my mottos is we rise by lifting others. And I think that's exactly what you said. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful quality. I think that's how you build a team.
Well, any other questions?
Since you asked, what is your motto? What is your tagline? We in the industry, the entertainment industry, when you go in and pitch a project, you always say, "What's your line?" Right, for your project, your script, whatever it is. And sometimes it's one sentence, sometimes it's three. But I would say for your businesses and to inspire those around you, what is your logline? What is your tagline? What is your motto? What is your mission statement, if you will?
My mission statement to me, Renee was passing a card, but I have it very clear too, because it says in my business card, it says creative minds creating value for our clients. It's wonderful to think about, but it's slightly more personally engaging. In order to inspire the power of creativity in others, you have to give them an environment of richness that enables that to happen. And they have to know that. So in my business, we of course drive creativity, which is the number one. We inspire creativity because that's what creates uniqueness. Right? Now, creativity doesn't mean, that you get up and you draw something different. It has to be within the scope of managing success. And the last thing that I do in my business is we got to keep creativity at a level at which it is measurable by the team. You cannot say in 10 years from now. So in everything we do, the way we measure creativity is by the mantra of 1 + 1 = 11. Right? If you are one and I am one and we decide to work together, then the creative powers must show how you and I can create 11 together. Because we will definitely not able to meet all the goals. So if 1 + 1 fails and becomes half of that, then we still have created 5. But if we start with 1 plus 1 and, I'd come to a normal equation of 3 and then we screw it up and then it becomes half, then you have depreciated the value of the thing. So the mantra of 1 plus 1, 11 in a measurable terms of time has to be, that allows you to create value is the power that I want to try to build when I work in the world of business and in personal relationships also, but I'm more so careful of that in the world of business.
That's good. I love that analogy. That's a powerful visual, right? And I think visuals are powerful. So thank you. Great answer. I could ask you a million more questions, but I don't know how much time you have.
We can make a question and answer session later. And I'm sure we will. But thank you for making this time. Thank you for being so open. And I think that you will do an amazing story with your bomb products as long as you keep on expanding the product line, because that's what makes a business, and we can help you in some of that. So, okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and tell Renee thank you as well. And I look forward to speaking.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot, lady. Have a good evening.